The snow in the Bitter Ridge wilderness had been falling for hours, muffling the world in silence. Most people avoided this part of Montana during the dead of winter. But the K-9 unit from a North Valley search and rescue team had a training op scheduled, and nothing stopped their drills, not even a storm. Handler Sierra Camden had led 5 German shepherds into the White Wild earlier that morning, their paws kicking up tufts of frost as they navigated the dense woods. She was experienced, disciplined, but all it took was a split-second distraction. A call on the radio, a gust of wind. When she looked up again, the dogs had vanished. At first, she wasn't alarmed. They were well-trained, loyal to a fault, and equipped with GPS collars. But the signal flickered. Static, then silence. The storm scrambled everything. Unbeknownst to Sierra, the dogs weren't lost. They had picked up something human. Deeper in the forest, nearly a mile north of the last checkpoint, a man hung limp from a tree, wrists bound behind him, chains slicing into flesh. His name was Ranger Elias Monroe, a 20-year veteran of the Forestry Department. Today should have been routine log check-ins, perimeter inspections, but instead, he'd been ambushed. 3 men, faces hidden beneath ski masks, had jumped him at the Sector 12 marker. They demanded access to unregistered land for illegal logging and trapping. Elias refused. They beat him, broke his radio, and dragged him off the trail. They didn't want ransom. They wanted him gone. For 48 hours, Elias endured. His uniform was shredded and stained red. His fingers numb. His throat dry. Snow gathered on his shoulders like a shroud. His vision blurred between waking and passing out. Then came a sound. Not boots. Not human. But paws. They moved as 5 German shepherds. Coats dusted in white. Eyes like flint. The lead dog, a towering male with a silver streak across his snout and a scar over his left eye, stepped forward and sniffed the air. Elias blinked. His brain, near shutdown, thought wolves at first. But no, these were trained. He could see in their posture, their symmetry. Soldiers. The lead dog sat in front of him silent, unmoving. Then another approached the tree. Another began digging in the snow. One stayed at a distance, barking sharply in intervals, calling for help. Elias couldn't speak, but he mouthed the words, "Good dogs." Then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes again, it wasn't to trees and snow, it was to fluorescent lights and the antiseptic smell of the infirmary back at the ranger station. Bandages wrapped his ribs. A saline drip hung beside him. A nurse touched his shoulder. "You're safe. They found you just in time." Elias rasped through cracked lips. "The dogs. They're outside," she smiled. "Especially the big one with the scar. He hasn't moved from the door since they brought you in." Later that day, Sheriff Alan Whitaker entered. A hulking man in his 50s with a badge older than some of his deputies. He carried a map and a folder. "You've been through hell," he said, setting the files on the bed. "But I need you to look at this." Elias stared at the map. His body ached, but his mind sharpened. "That's Sector 12, he muttered. "We haven't patrolled that in years." "Exactly," Whitaker said. "It's off-grid. No trail cams. No footprints. Whoever dumped you knew where no one would look." Elias gritted his teeth. "They wanted me gone, and nearly got their wish." There was a soft scratch at the door. "Come in," Whitaker called. The door opened. The scarred German shepherd padded in. "Meet Titan," the sheriff said. Retired military K-9. Lost his handler 2 years ago overseas. Never bonded with anyone since. Until now. The dog stepped forward and laid his head gently on Elias's lap. The ranger's fingers trembled as they curled into Titan's thick coat. "He saved my life." "He chose you," the sheriff said. Handler Sierra Camden entered then. Her eyes brimmed with awe. "He stayed with you the whole time. Wouldn't budge until we loaded you onto the sled. Even then, he growled at us like we were strangers." Elias exhaled. He knew I was still in danger. But before more could be said, a deputy burst through the door. "Sheriff," he said, breathless, "we found tire tracks near Sector 12. Chains freshly cut. Someone was there last night." Whitaker's face turned to stone. "They're cleaning up loose ends." Elias pushed off the bed, pain searing through him. "They think I'm still out there." Titan growled. Low. Alert. That night, the ranger station was tense. Deputies patrolled in shifts. Radio stayed on full volume. But Elias couldn't rest. He wrapped himself in a thermal blanket and sat near the window, Titan curled at his feet. "They're not finished," he murmured. Sierra sat beside him. "We're bringing in federal investigators. This wasn't just about poaching. It's bigger. Someone forged access permits with internal signatures." Elias frowned. "They faked my signature?" She handed him a file. "Name, Caleb Brandt. Contractor. Authorized by Elias Monroe." Only he'd never signed it. "This came from inside," she whispered. Later that night, Elias stepped out for air. Snow fell in soft curtains. Titan walked beside him, limping slightly from an old wound. Near the north fence line, Sheriff Whitaker stood alone. "Couldn't sleep?" Elias asked. Whitaker didn't turn. "Funny," he said. "All these years, and the real threat wasn't the wild. It was us." Elias froze. Then Whitaker looked over his shoulder. "They offered money, just to ignore the permits. I didn't know they'd go that far. Chaining you up, that wasn't part of it. You betrayed me. You were in the way." Titan growled. His body went taut. Whitaker's hand twitched toward his belt. Before he could reach his weapon, Titan lunged. The sheriff hit the ground hard. By the time deputies arrived, Elias was standing over him with forged documents in hand. "He confessed," Elias said. Whitaker said nothing as they cuffed him. Titan stood beside Elias, chest heaving, eyes never blinking. The fallout was massive. Investigators combed the station. They uncovered a network of forged land use forms, bribes, and threats. Half a dozen rangers had been pushed out over the years quietly. Elias testified, his body still healing, but his voice steady. Through every hearing, every interview, Titan sat beside him. Silent, loyal. By spring, the snow melted. A new unit was formed, Echo K9 Tactical Response. Elias was named lead. Sierra became division chief. Titan returned to active duty, older but resolute. But one night, weeks later, Titan barked at the fence. Elias stepped out. A figure darted into the trees. Left behind, a chain and a badge. The war wasn't over, but they were ready. Together.